And I'm going to ask the audience to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll.
Belzak.
Here.
Gustafson. Kenny.
Here.
Legansky.
Here.
Shower.
Here.
Stompanato. Sullivan.
Here.
5 present and 2 absent.
We have a quorum. Takes us to questions and comments and announcements of the general nature. We have this on our agenda that allows anybody from the audience to come to the microphone and speak on anything that's either on this agenda or not on this agenda, so they don't have to wait until that item comes up. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come to the microphone at this point? Please come forward.
Good evening. Mayor, council, attendees. I have some concerns about the e-bikes and scooters and skateboards. Would it be more appropriate to be at the police committee meeting, or is tonight a good time to, tonight?
Under the comments, there's a 3-minute limit, so I'm not sure how long you have to do your presentation, but tonight's works well.
Okay, so you guys can see this afterwards, I'll leave it here.
Sir, what is your name, please?
Tracy Sims, 543 71st Street. So I understand there's a proposed ordinance, and I talked with Ralph Stompanato, and he said this would be a good opportunity to present. This is our house right here on 71st Street, Bentley, 71st. These are 3 scenarios, 1, 2, and 3, separated by the lines. So one of my concerns is so this is a hill coming down 71st, and it goes flat at Bentley. So families of 4, 2 parents, 2 kids, they just roll right through this, coming down the hill. They don't ever stop. And the e-bikes, the e-scooters, everybody. Nobody stops at these 4 stop signs. You know, I can see it right out my window. My concern for me personally is, here's my house. If I'm backing up, I can see that there's nobody coming on 71st Street, but I can't see that the person who's not stopping here would be hitting my car in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds. And the same thing would happen from this side. So my concern is that people, one, aren't stopping, even families, so parents are teaching their kids that stopping at a stop sign isn't important. So a very scary occurrence happened just a few nights ago. It was dark, it was about 8:30. We happened to be in our living room with the windows open. I saw a shadow, and I heard the buzz like an electric bike, and about 10 to 15 seconds later I heard a screech. I can only surmise that maybe a car had seen that and wanted to stop. There's 2 boys that routinely, everybody who turns usually ends up right in the middle of the street. One set of 2 guys, one does a wheelie all the way down the street. The other one was coming down with it, looking at his cell phone. They're not even looking, but they're in the middle of the street, and they're going too fast. So even though this is at 63rd Street here, this is 63rd Street coming this way east. So there was an e-bike right in the front, in the middle lane on 63rd headed east. These are not street legal vehicles, correct? So here he is sitting in front of all the cars. And concerned about that. Probably about up with my time, right? So, Mr. Thomas, or Chief Thomas, do you want me to leave this with you for the committee meeting? Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your.
Well,
very
it
much.
could be, there's e-bikes, there's scooters, there's a skateboard, and a lot of times it might be
That's
two.
all included in the ordinance.
Sure.
So my point is that this is illegal now, we don't need an ordinance for this.
Exactly, right.
Sir,
Yes.
we have a police committee, and you're welcome to make the presentation to the police committee.
Okay.
Alderman Kenny chairs that.
July 21st, 6 o'clock, across the parking lot of the train.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that. Thank you very much for your
Thank you
time.
for.
Thank you.
Fine, thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Okay, anyone else? All right, I'm looking to for approval.
Yeah.
And you're looking for a motion to approve the June 2nd, 2025 city council meeting. Moved by Alderman Kenny, seconded by Alderman Legansky. Any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Kenny?
Aye.
Legansky?
Aye.
Belzak?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
Shower?
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
Those minutes have been approved. Now I need a motion to approve the city council and Darien Park District Board of Commissioners Committee of the whole meeting for June 5th, 2025, moved by Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Belzak. Again, any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Shower?
Aye.
Belzak? Kenny?
Aye.
Legansky?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
And those minutes have been approved. It takes us to receiving of communications. Do any of the aldermen have communications they'd like to share with the council? Alderman Kenny?
Yes, Mayor, not my ward, but Martin Gorski called me regarding Metro subcontractors doing work in his backyard after 8 o'clock at night. There's been questions about what the ordinance actually reads. I brought that to Ryan this afternoon. I talked about it to Dan right now. That's all I got.
Anyone else? Mary?
I saw on my neighborhood Facebook page and then received copy of a communication that Drew Kelly, resident of Terra Hill, Darien, wrote to the county and several others about the long needed change in the traffic light at basically Oldfield, 87th Fountain, whatever you want to call it, where the fire station is, and Lamont Road when you're going westbound. It's a very quick light. It's been that way for a long time, and I think it's gotten worse there in the sense of the traffic's gotten heavier. I think traffic on I-55 has gotten significantly heavier, so at peak times, a lot of people are bailing off of 55 on a frontage road, and then that's how they're making their way further west, down Boughton, and maybe getting on 355. So he did write it. I shared it with Dan Govek, and Dan got quick and swift action from the county to make a change right away without, having to undergo a traffic study. Let's see how it goes. So I just wanted to thank Dan for acting quickly and helping us get this resolved. So grateful for that. I know we just approved the minutes from the Darien Park District meeting. It was a very productive meeting. We look forward to more down the road. We are going to have a liaison from City Council who will partner with a liaison from the Park District to keep the lines of communication fluid, and then we will have an annual meeting with them. So since Ralph's not here tonight and Alderman Gustafson's not here, I'm going to talk to them to see if there's any interest before we decide who's going to be the volunteer to work with the Park District liaison, which is Luann Spiros.
And I want to thank you, Mary, for the time you've spent so far. Mary worked with them to rectify the minutes and the press release that went out. So many thanks to Mary. Many thanks to all of you for being there that night. Of course, I wasn't part of that. And neither was their staff member as part of it. It was strictly the 5 commissioners and the 6 aldermen who were present. And from what I understand, it was a very productive meeting. And it really is going to set a tone for future cooperation and work between the Park District and the city.
Oh, yes, and it was just helpful for us to understand where our similarities are in terms of governance and our differences are. So, and just get to know each other a little bit better. So I've got a lot of communications tonight, sorry. Carriage Greens, there's been a lot of communications, a lot of calls, a lot of concerns, a lot of panicked residents regarding the permit that's been issued to put a fence along the 3rd pole on Carriage Greens, which ends up right in the backyards of many residents in the Carriageway West neighborhood. And a lot of discussions have gone back and forth with the owners of Carriage Greens on my behalf, on the behalf of some of the homeowners' leadership. from Carriageway West and Carriage Greens and the Villas and Pinehurst. And unfortunately, to really no avail. It does appear that the owners of Carriage Greens, the Brodericks, are going to proceed with the fence along the third hole. I had residents wanting to, asked and pleaded for an altered fence, maybe a corral style like that they have along Bailey Road, that wouldn't be as obtrusive. They were even willing to put some of their own money towards it, but the Brodericks have purchased the material and plan to proceed with fencing that area.
I received a phone call on Thursday or Friday from Tracy Joyce. Tracy lives right there at the end of the third hole. And the fence would cover half of her backyard. And she thought it was ridiculous to have a fence that covered half of her backyard where people could still come through. And then when I went home, after I left City Hall today, I went home to have something to eat, and I got a voicemail from another gentleman who was concerned. He obviously lives on that third hole as well. Tracy is part of our subdivision, and we don't have a homeowners association. So she said if there's any meeting with the leaders of the homeowners, could we include her in those discussions? But I told her, I said, it really looks at this point as if this fence is going to go up.
Right, we've attempted meetings, small meetings, bigger meetings. I mean, I feel like I've had a lot of conversations and meetings. And it seems like we take one step forward and then two steps backwards because there ends up being an incident, trespassing, vandalism. And the Brodericks have pretty much made it clear that they feel that they have no choice but to make this fence a reality to avoid more damage to their course. But I don't think the reality is it's gonna stop it. I think if people want to get on the course, they'll just walk down the block and get on it in a different way. But I walked the backyards and the course, well, I stayed in people's backyards versus on the course. I didn't want to get in trouble. And in some cases, the fence is very close to people's, it's obviously on the Carriage Greens property, but it's, really changing the landscape of people's yards.
It's a chain link fence, correct?
It's a 6-foot chain link fence, yes. So I just hope it's cared for and maintained. But it is unfortunate that another resolution could not come to par. I'll use the term since I'm a golfer. But yeah, it's just, I feel, my heart really goes out to the residents. My heart goes out to the Brodericks too. I know they've had a lot of years of frustration, but I just really feel like we could have gotten a better solution for the residents. And
It worked
we tried.
20 years ago. We were able to rectify the situation and keep the fence from going up. But it just seems like their level of frustration was so high that there was no option other than to put the fence up.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, that takes us to our mayor's report. And we have something nice on our agenda tonight. We have our 2025 Darien Lions Club Humanitarian of the Year Award. For the past 12 years, the Darien Lions Club have given out the Humanitarian of the Year Award. And this was developed, I'd like to say 12 years ago by Lion Ray Krasinski and myself to award someone from Darien, Woodridge, Willowbrook, Burr Ridge, wherever, with this award, someone who really stands out as a humanitarian. We send out a notice to the churches, the schools, and the leaders of every organization for nominees. And then we have a committee that's composed of Lions Club members who have won the George Lazansky Award, who go through those nominees and they select a recipient. Normally, and in all the years we've offered this award, while we've had them nominated, we have never had a Lions Club member win the award because we've tried to have this go to someone who's not a Lions Club member. This year, our only nominees were Lions Club members. And so it's kind of a unique year for us. But I'd like to read the following. Our 2025 recipient has made a difference with several organizations here in Darien. His volunteer work with both Our Lady of Peace and Mount Carmel churches has positively benefited their food pantry programs and special needs. 3 years ago, when tornadoes hit the Darien and Woodridge areas. More than once he volunteered time and money to assist his fellow citizens. He organized a clothing and basic needs collection that filled more than one truck and had it delivered to St. Scholastica Church in Woodridge to assist those whose homes had been badly damaged. He spent countless hours assisting those that needed help clearing debris, moving belongings, and getting food, basically assisting others by providing basic comfort. His involvement with the Darien Youth Club has earned him high regard and appreciation of every parent that has a child in that program. He comes up with unique ways of adding value to their programs. For example, he suggested that the Darien Lions deliver a free hot dog giveaway to all children and their families that participate in the yearly DYC April Kickoff Parade. The idea evolved into the Lions creating a committee to provide free hot dogs at 3 events each year: the DYC Parade, National Night Out, and the Darien Christmas Tree Lighting Program. Over the years, his ideas have been incorporated into the daily efforts of every organization he has been involved in. The administrative management from our local churches know who to call when they have a unique challenge to take on. The Darien Lions know that if they have a special program that needs someone to find a way to deliver services, they call him. We have never heard him say no. On the contrary, no matter what the issue or difficulty of the project, he smiles and says, "We'll figure it out." Our 2025 Darien Lions Humanitarian of the Year has made a difference in Darien, Woodridge, Westmont, and Willowbrook. As tornadoes know no boundaries, here they can harm, neither does our recipient. What our nominator adds, I have witnessed his involvement for almost 15 years that I have known him, and have witnessed how he instilled his caring and compassion for those in need into his true sons. They are often at his side at every event he volunteers for. Our recipient has touched the lives of hundreds of people around our community, and he is most worthy of our designation as the 2025 Darien Lions Humanitarian of the Year. We are proud of his efforts, and we are privileged to call him our fellow Lion, our friend, and our fellow Darien resident. Please join me in recognizing Lion Andrew Brunson as our 2025 Darien Lions Humanitarian of the Year. Andrew, I am so looking forward to getting rid of this brick. One of the things that we do is we have a brick patio over at the Darien Community Park. And over the years, people can buy one of these bricks for a deceased member of their family, or just as a tribute to their husband or their wife. And what we do is we give a commemorative brick to the individual who wins this award, but this brick is already in that brick patio. So Andrew is now officially.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Say a few words.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mayor, council members, good evening. I truly am honored and humbled to receive this award. While my name is on this award, the recognition belongs to many people. The heart to serve others was instilled in me at a young age thanks to my parents. They taught me not just through words, but through actions, that compassion, generosity, and showing up for others is some of the most important things we do in life. I've been fortunate to be surrounded by a community that steps up, whether it's stocking those food pantry shelves, supporting families after a tornado, or just making sure every child has a chance to feel like they belong to something while playing youth sports in our community. None of what I have done has been done alone. I share this honor with all the volunteers, donors, neighbors, and especially my wife and my 2 sons, who are often by my side, giving their energy, heart, and help to others. At the core of this work is a simple belief: we're all responsible for one another. My hope is that, in a small way, the work that we do sets an example, especially for the youth of our community, that caring for those in need is not just possible, but it's essential. So thanks again for this incredible honor. I'm deeply grateful.
On to part two of our mayor's report. And tonight we have with us our city attorney, John Murphy, who's going to provide us an update with our TIF proposal for Chestnut Court. John?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I believe it was last January, February, where I appeared before the council to give an overview in general terms of what TIF is all about, how it works, and how the incentive is calculated and potentially distributed if the council goes ahead. By necessity, those remarks were in general terms because we didn't have an eligibility report from a qualified consultant indicating that a particular property is eligible for TIF treatment. We now have that eligibility report from the tester company. Now is not the night to go over it, but now that there is an eligibility report, the next scheduled date for the council to consider actions, which I'll describe in a moment, would be July 21, which is your next meeting. There's no meeting on the 7th. So let me explain what needs to be done between now and then, or at that meeting. And then I just wanted to take a moment to show you in the context of the Chestnut Court property, one of the PIN numbers, how TIF operates. The council will be asked to consider an ordinance, what I call a scheduling ordinance. That is an ordinance accepting or acknowledging receipt of the eligibility report and scheduling a public hearing on the creation of a TIF district for the property. Let me emphasize what that ordinance does not do. Scheduling a public hearing on the TIF ordinance does not obligate any member of the council to vote for that. It's to start a public hearing process where you'll consider testimony and statements pro and con. So it is not authorizing the process to begin, is not a vote in favor of the TIF taking place. Similarly, the determination of whether this particular property qualifies under the TIF law does not mean you're approving any particular development agreement. A development agreement is the product of individual give and take, which would come before the council. Now, to be sure, because we're dealing with one piece of property and one owner, we would be negotiating the potential development agreement, not sequentially, but simultaneously, if the council moves ahead on the 21st with the process. Any development agreement would naturally come before the city council. Let me kind of lay out the roadmap of the sequencing. If the council adopts the scheduling ordinance, there will be two matters which will be scheduled. One is the public hearing on the establishment of the TIF district. That public hearing is preceded by notice, the normal public notice with any zoning type thing, but also notice would be sent to all of the taxing bodies who have property within this area. Between the date of the adoption of this process ordinance and the public hearing, the city would also reconvene what I referred to before as the Joint Review Board. The Joint Review Board is composed of representatives of all of the taxing bodies, including the city, and what the law calls a public member, meaning a member of the public appointed by everybody else to consider the eligibility criteria established by the consultant and make a recommendation as to whether they believe that this property qualifies for TIF treatment. So the process ordinance would be adopted, joint review board meeting or meetings held, public hearing held, and then following the public hearing, there would be proposed ordinances that would be adopted establishing the TIF district, none of which in and of themselves involve a particular redevelopment agreement. Because there was discussion both at the commission level and at the council level about how does TIF work and how will this impact the schools? I thought it would be helpful just to review that again. The name indicates, tax increment financing, or the tax increment law, is a property tax incentive. And it allows the city to encourage redevelopment of particular property by way of the additional property value of a redeveloped property arising from the new property tax income created by the development itself. I was Sunday, I was out, I'm listening to the radio, and I just heard a little blurb on news radio that they finally have completed the demolition of Stratford Square in Bloomingdale. Nobody would have thunk that 20 years ago. So the concept of what property needs TIF treatment, needs local government support is an issue not simply in Darien but everywhere. To explain how TIF works, there is something called the base EAV, base equalized assessed valuation. So at the time the city adopts the TIF ordinance, the tax base is frozen. And continuing on from now until forever, the amount of property taxes that individual taxing bodies receive will be based on the frozen EAV. We kind of consider that the below the line. And then the amount of additional property taxes over and above what is frozen, that's the increment. And that increment is captured by the county and sent to the city, and the city needs to establish a separate, in effect, a trust account, what's called the STAF, S-T-A-F, Special Tax Allocation Fund, and that money, like bond proceeds, can only be used for redevelopment purposes of that property. To give an illustration, what I did is print out this tax bill comparison. This Chestnut Court property has 4 or 5 PIN numbers. This is one of the largest PIN numbers. So let's take a look at 2023 first. You can see that in 2023, the total tax for this PIN was approximately $115,000. You see that on the right side of and that accumulative tax bill is composed of all of the levies from every single taxing body where this property lies. The school districts, the county, park district, et cetera, et cetera. Now take a look at 2024. This is the same bill for the same PIN, but a year later. 2 things are apparent. Number one is you will see that the tax bill for this property actually went down a little bit, which helps to underscore one of the findings of the eligibility report, that there are declining tax revenues. Why are there declining tax revenues? Vacancies, assessment appeals, it's simple arithmetic. I've highlighted in yellow the 2 school districts. So for this PIN, you can see that District 66 in 2023 received about, anybody got my Walgreens glasses?
46,000.
46,000.
46,000, and a little bit less the following year.
43,000.
Likewise for the high school district. So assuming the TIF is established during this 2024 tax year, every taxing body will still get the revenue that is shown on that bill. And if the redevelopment project is a success, the new property, the additional property taxes, the increment come to the city for a redevelopment project. Now, so this really is a double-barreled illustration. One, the property taxes for this area is going down because the property needs help. And number 2, whatever the districts have levied for this property, once the final ordinances are adopted, they're gonna get from hell or high water. I then took a look separately at the tax levy for District 66. Now, they're concerned about tax impact, and we should all be concerned about that because it's all our kids, all our friends and neighbors. But if we, now that the residential component is out of this project, the impact of this TIF district on SD 66 is negligible and almost not subject to calculation. Let me explain what I mean by that. In 2023, the Chestnut Court property in total, not just this bit, in total paid about $86,000 to District 66. I got on the district's webpage and I checked their audit. Their total most recent tax levy, 13.9 million. So even if this TIF district doubled the amount of property taxes so that we would be getting $86,000 or $100,000 a year, that as a percentage of the overall tax levy for that school district is less than 1%, a fraction of 1%, and will likely decline because the majority of values in our area are rising. So now that the residential is out of the picture, the impact on any of the taxing bodies from a straight commercial area redevelopment project is so insignificant as to be almost not measurable. One little piece of property in the context of entire taxing bodies. So there'll be, in addition, there will be one other ordinance that the city council will be asked to consider on the 21st, and that's what's called the Interested Persons Ordinance. Under the law, people who are interested in this TIF district or any TIF district in a municipality, once we adopt this ordinance, has the right to receive the actual notices that go out and, relating to a TIF district. Ordinarily, citizens are not entitled to any notice, just a normal newspaper notice that's published. But if we adopt this interested party ordinance, any resident anywhere can sign up to be on the mailing list, essentially to receive actual notice. So it's a provision of the law that's designed to increase transparency and to allow interested people to get real notices as opposed to having to comb newspapers. Finally, assuming that the council wants to at least consider this on the 21st, there's a separate requirement that we will be able to handle at the mayor's and at staff level, which is the law requires that before we adopt this process scheduling ordinance that I described, the eligibility study, the one that the council has received, the Tesker report, needs to be made publicly available for at least 10 days prior to the 21st of July. So now with the council's permission, we'll go ahead, make that available, hard copy at City Hall, but also post it on the city's webpage to satisfy the 10-day requirement. It will be obviously much more than 10 days, it will be a month. So that's kind of the roadmap. Now that we've got a particular piece of property and a particular focus with the eligibility study that the council can expect moving forward. As I said before, from start to finish, from July 21st, because of the different notices and meetings involved, figure 4 to 6 months.
John, on your exhibit, you covered the right side, which is 23 to 24. The left side, which is 22 to 23, is really a dramatic drop that particular year. So as the council's looking at this exhibit,
every year.
yeah, if you look at that going from 69,000 down to 46,000 the year before, that's
Big number.
That's a big number, yeah.
I mean, it proved
Yeah.
the test of point, actually.
That's right.
And it's more
They're
than
getting less
likely to-
money every year anyway, so.
Could I?
Mary?
So just,
Jerry, let me just correct you on that. They're getting less money from this property.
Understood.
Now, remember, governmental bodies like the city and school district, they levy amounts. So they'll be getting it
Understood.
from everybody else, all the other taxes.
Either way, somewhere it's being Yeah,
So
it's
I'm
being
gonna
met somewhere.
piggyback my question on that, cause the school district, you know, if they wanted to do a referendum, either one, or, you know, their levy each year, that would, an additional referendum percentage or, you know, obviously most schools levy more than, they don't go flat. That would not get passed on, it would literally freeze the number as it stands,
As to
On the
this,
tax.
as to this property only,
this property only.
yes.
So no other increment, you know, would be given.
Well, yes, well, if they, let's say that, you know, give a crazy example, Mary. Let's say that as a result of a referendum, they increase their levy by 25%. That additional levy will show up on the overall tax bill of the property. So that increased revenue from this property will go into the TIF fund. So it doesn't affect what they're gonna get from this property, but it will affect what they'll get from all the other.
And is 23 years, like, can you
Let
make
me,
that a different amount of years?
well, let me explain why that crazy number comes up. It's the product historically of when TIF districts were created. It takes a couple of years to get the property assessed. And then if there was going to be a municipal bond financing, an optimum period of time for a bond issue would be 20 years. So the 23 years is, it takes a couple of years to get the thing jump-started, and then it would blend into a term of a municipal bond.
Typical, yeah.
Here, we're only talking about what's called pay-as-you-go. There's not gonna be any city financing. But that's where the oddball number, 23 years, comes. And if we have an agreement with a developer, that'll call for reimbursement. Remember, TIF agreements are reimbursement. It's not just handout. It's reimbursement for money that the developer spends to improve its property. If the project is over, the money is paid back in 16 years as opposed to 23, and there's no other obligations, then it's our obligation as a city to dissolve the TIF district before the expiration of the 23 years and release. So let's assume the TIF is fabulously successful. After those TIF obligations are paid off, all of that additional base that we captured and used for redevelopment purposes gets released to all the taxing bodies as if there's a big brand new development there. It's as if, in the new city language, as if we would annex a big piece of property and all of a sudden have all that new tax base. That's the ultimate payback of TIF districts. Because it always, you know, there's always the imponderable question when the school district say, well, we're giving up property. To which the municipality responds, you're not giving anything up because without this incentive, there wouldn't be anything to give up. So it's that kind of a philosophical argument. But if the project is completed before the end of the term, we're obligated to dissolve the TIF district and release that tax base to everybody, the incremental tax base.
John, could you clarify the project? You know, sometimes, I've seen this in bigger TIF districts, you maybe do a project on, you know, these properties, this property. We could have a project that might last 5 years, but what if there's a phase 2 that starts in 7 years that we didn't anticipate possibly? So
That'll be within the scope of the overall TIF budget. And
okay,
certainly, you know, this is a very, as TIFs go, this is a pretty small one. But certainly if an additional project came in, we wouldn't be obligated, if it's what they call reasonably anticipated, that there would be another use for more funds. So it's not, deal number one doesn't preclude deal number two down the road.
At what point in the process do we become aware of what the TIF budget would be so we would know when we make our educated decision as to whether we want to do this or not, what type of funds we're looking for? Like I was looking at the utilities improvements or under, and I don't know if it was Dan or somebody put $1 million number in there regarding underground water storage, new parking lot, and I forget what it was. But that's obviously just estimate at this point? At what time are we gonna see real numbers as to what we would be doing in this thing?
As part of a redevelopment agreement,
Yes.
the developer has to submit a TIF eligible budget. And that TIF eligible budget would actually have their estimates of the TIF eligible improvements. And then when they finish the work, they would have to prove up the budget by having release of liens, paid invoices, et cetera. So that's how we would know exactly what would be the basis of the TIF obligation. Now remember, this is something that we talked about before when there was consideration of building the new building, the new residential. And the cost of construction of a new privately owned building is not TIF eligible. Utility work, property acquisition, everything leading up to the construction of the privately owned building is TIF eligible. But the new building is not. Now that the focus is more non-residential, pretty much any cost relative to renovation of existing is TIF eligible, including utility work that will potentially make those outlots available for sale. I mean, and it's kind of responding to your point, or Brian's point on deal number 2. Let's assume that we put all this utility work into a developer and it's another 5 or 7 years before we get somebody who's interested in building close to the frontage to build an outlot restaurant or whatever. That would be TIF deal number 2 with a different developer, different owner, and different deal. Now, if that project took 7 years before doing it, the maximum length of the TIF incentive would be 23 minus 7. So
At what point will we know, when will the developer give us their budget in this process?
I think right now, depending on, Kumar's on vacation this week. I put a call into him, so when he gets back next week, the goal of it is to see what his schedule in reality is. So we don't have a schedule. And with that schedule, will there be what's referred to, I'll just call it a phase 1. And phase 1 may be the frontage of 75th Street, creating an outdoor venue, or I should say restaurants with the open door concept, the underground detention, and the potential outlot building. So maybe that's phase 1. Phase 2 may be part of the entire not demo, but actually refurbishing of the existing stores that are in place. So by phasing it, we will have better ideas of potential construction schedules and costs. Hopefully within a month, I guess, to answer your question, Tom.
Well, I guess my thought is, we're gonna be voting on creating this. I wanna know, will I know the numbers before we go have that vote, or I'm just gonna have an estimate?
We'll have some numbers,
Okay.
yes.
But remember, Tom, a vote on July 20 was not to create the TIF district. It's just
I understand
start
that,
the project.
I'm just saying, that's gonna happen down the road. I just wanna know where, before we have that vote, how much information will we have regarding what this development's gonna be?
We'll have the infrastructure costs, for sure.
Okay.
Anything beyond the infrastructure, so let's say that we have 3 restaurants potentially coming in on the frontage of 75th Street. Now there's entitlement. So he has to be able to get out there and get those 3 restaurants so they can come back to the table. And what will they want from the developer? That will be basically, hopefully down the road, whether that's 2 months or a year. That's something that's gonna be additional, because no one's gonna be able, the build out's easy. Or I should say, the vanilla box is easy. It's the build out that's gonna be more costly.
We should have good numbers on what it would take to create the retention, a new parking lot, and new facades, so we're building up.
100%, yes,
Okay.
yes.
But John, maybe you could clarify that, because, that's part of the challenge we face on any developments. We faced it with this development where there's 3 balls up in the air. One is financing, one is the zoning, one is financing. But we're talking tonight about getting input still from the elected group on what they would like to see there. So while Dan and I and maybe the mayor are meeting with Kumar, I have no idea really what the council might be looking for, other than if we had a conversation. So if Jerry says, hey, this should be an entertainment district, and Tom says, wait, I only want indoor pickleball courts, I think maybe you could clarify how we get to where the council wants to go, considering you don't negotiate on TV for a development agreement. And that will be, I don't know, Tom, if that's kind of what you're getting to too, but
Yeah, I just kinda wanna know, this is a big step for us, and I kinda wanna have an idea of what we're trying, how much money we're hoping to raise during this. And again, can we get it done in 23? Can we, is that unrealistic, or is it realistic? It depends on the things that we're hoping to accomplish. Like I said, with the utilities, there was a $1 million number in there, and I don't know how close that number is to putting in a new parking lot, putting in underground water retention. But we should have solid numbers on what 2025 numbers. When they get done in 26 and 27, they might be different, but we should have a pretty good starting point on what those type of things cost.
And we do tentatively. The water main, for example, well, the water main, more than likely, we're not gonna be put in because the residential component is now gone. Yes, it's still a good practice, but that's $1 million right there. The underground detention, that's $1 million. So just off the cuff, ballparking, we have about $5 million of infrastructure that could be completed tomorrow. What is necessary? Water main is not necessary, if you wanna say. It's a good practice. Detention, that's necessary in order to promote that additional build-outs fronting 75th Street. And the actual facade work, that's probably, I don't even wanna call it that, but all of that work could be completed in 5 years at best. So, from that perspective, the build-outs could be completed in a timely manner.
John,
that's part of my question of following up. Dan has this in his head because we've been dealing with it, but we might get to a point where we sit down and maybe Kumar has ideas, but maybe the plan and the budgets that Kumar might come up with, the city council, again, maybe they're gonna say, well, no, I don't really think this is a good plan. So what Tom's asking, we're giving Tom a schedule already that I don't know that we would adhere to, because we're still at the drawing board of what maybe Kumar wants to do, what the city would be interested in helping, and maybe the city's goal for the project. We had a goal of a mixed-use project, that has now changed. I don't know that we have the council's goal for the rest of the development, and I wanna make sure that we get that and we're able to do that. So there's no surprises, like there were this time. Again, as we're dealing with this, we knew of the challenges, and I don't wanna tell Tom there's a schedule here when we have to still see the challenges. So how do we get to there?
Couple points. Number one, I think that, we are just a government. And I think too, in terms of uses, land uses on this property, to some extent, we have to be the catcher and not the pitcher. The private sector has to tell us what they think the market will accept for this property, and we either accept it or we don't. The difference between this, negotiating a development deal like this, and zoning is that there may be a land use that the city as a regulator don't really like, but it fits into the zoning and we have to swallow it. Auto repair place to open up a scab. But as contracting parties incentivizing a project, we have 100% discretion to say we don't like it. We're not gonna incentivize what you're proposing. That's because it's purely a matter of contract. But you're right, there's unknowns, and getting the TIF in place doesn't obligate us to do anything. It doesn't entitle this particular developer to anything.
John, let's say he wants to bring a certain business in, and that business wants an incentive to move into that center, and it's really a quality business that he wants and we want. Can TIF money be utilized to provide that incentive?
Yes. A common form of incentive is rent write-down. So in other words, that developer, I demand X dollars per square foot for rent. The user, the tenant, remember, on these commercial deals, the tenant almost invariably pays the taxes because those are passed on. The tenant says, well, I only want to pay 50% of that for my rent. TIF funds could be used to reimburse the developer for writing down that rent cost. Now, there's other forms of incentives that don't involve property tax dollars, the typical one being a sales tax sharing agreement. That would be strictly, that would be a two-party, but between the city and the business. You know, this is not a car dealer site, but sales tax sharing agreements are common with car dealers because 50% of automobile sales are a lot bigger than 50% of a restaurant sale. But property tax incentives in terms of rent write-down and things of that nature would be TIF eligible.
So John, then we would have I'll use the mayor's example, a grocery store might come in, they wanna write down on the rent. We would have an agreement with the developer, obviously before they would get anything, but how would a development agreement contemplate a use in 2 years and decide if the city council approves that use and thinks it's worthy of an incentive? Somewhere it's in the base agreement, but 2 years out, if that use comes in, does the city council review that, or is that usually done in the initial agreement?
It's unusual to have an initial agreement, to have a specific menu of uses.
Right.
Because there's too many variables.
So the city council would get a shot at that. Again, my example, in 2 years, a use comes in, Kumar likes, the city council likes it. The new use tells Kumar, I need this write down. The city council would then know what that is again, before they approve it. Development agreement won't approve that, even from day one.
Not
necessarily.
Not an initial if
Right.
there's unknown specific
Yeah.
uses. Now, I've done agreements where you can put what I call a corral of allowable uses, which would be more of a letter of intent, glorified letter of intent saying these are the type of uses that the city would look favorably on incentivizing. But that would still need its own deal to bring to fulfillment, because things are so changeable.
Dan, he's almost with the residential gone, we're almost at the point where he could start that redevelopment now.
Tomorrow he can come in here and get a building permit to renovate what he wants to renovate. So that's a building permit tomorrow.
So our incentive for having a TIF district would be able to have funds to help generate a center that we want.
That's part of it too. And to John's point, it will cover, the TIF will also have the opportunity for reimbursement on the facade, for example. So really, the TIF in this case is for newer development per se. As I referred to as, again, I'll call it the glory dream in my head was that there's an open concept of restaurants. Maybe there's 3 of them with some type of venues in the back or as part of their business, whether it's acoustical, some type of show type. Is that something that the city council wants? The market's gonna dictate to what type of brick and mortar establishments are gonna last for the next 20 years. So we don't know that at this point. It's based on obviously demographics, geographics, so on and so forth. And this is now, since this zoning got approved, Kumar now can start advertising for specific type of businesses or businesses we would like. I think the echo has been, yes, more restaurants, more than fast foods. We get it, definitely. We're trying to reach out to Let Us Entertain You, for example. brick and mortar businesses in the restaurant business. There's very few startups today, very few. The bigger, deeper pockets, maybe they want this opportunity. But it takes, broker services and so on and so forth. So that's just one example. Is Burlington Coat Factory. They're coming back in now. Whether or not they're gonna take the old Salvation Army establishments over, or if they're gonna take over Joanne Fabrics space, because Burlington Coat Factory actually bought the leases out from Joanne. So whether or not Kumar wants to entertain that, there's some legality, if you wanna say, of what that actually means. So we don't have all those details.
The thing I wanted to add for a lot of the public, which they don't know, where a lot of us know, he bought this property back in 2023. He met with us within about a month or so. And he came to us and asked us how we saw this center, how we wanted to see it develop. We had meetings with him last year where he had architectural drawings, where he, our proposals, he put them on paper. And he's been very accommodating to us in terms of working with us. He basically has about 65 or 60% vacancy within that center, which he basically kept open because we were anticipating the residential. And I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. He did. He thought there was a possibility of having that residential. So he has been someone that we know we can work with. And I think that the TIF proposal provides us with an opportunity to make that a center that we could be worthy of, that we could be proud of, and which will really be a good tax producer for the city.
Right, when we presented the items to Kumar, those were all inputs over the years, if you wanna say, from city council, from residents, Again, we've all heard Trader Joe's, white cloth restaurants, some type of venues that will have during, call it a water fountain, or I should say a fountain, for example, something where people can gather. So how much space is left at the end of the day? Brick type of paver blocks, if you wanna say, within the walking area and creating some type of path. So those were all ideas that were put out there, and again, to your point, Kumar was willing to invest those types of monies. So again, obviously the cost of what they skyrocketed today, he's taking a second look at things.
So John, really at this point, I need to instruct staff to put out the eligibility report both on the city website as well as,
The copy's available for
Yeah.
walk-ins at the front desk.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's all at this point, and then we'll move forward, the council can study it, and we can, it gives us much information, but we'll target the 21st to adopt, or at least present for adoption, the process ordinance.
John, you did say something there, if I understood correctly, after we adopt the ordinance, then it gets open to a committee meeting where all the taxing districts are involved.
Yes, that's the joint review board.
Right, so let's say there's 10 or however many different districts here. So all 10 of them get together, and what if 6 of them say no and 4 of them say yes? Who makes the final decision? Is it a majority? Does it come back to the city
Come back to the
council?
council.
So they're just advisory,
They're advisory
like
only.
one of our other committees would be?
Yeah, and ordinarily, the lower the percentage a governmental body has on a tax bill for a piece of property, the less likely it is that they'll even send somebody to the joint review board. Community college, look at the size of the COD's tax base, but nothing really, so and a lot of times they'll make the smaller tax bodies like COD will make a decision to stay out of the politics.
But again, they're just advisory at that
The Joint
stage.
Review Board is an advisory recommendation on eligibility only, not particular development proposal. That's kind of the bright line, it's eligibility only, not specific land use related.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to add for the public, this is the first time we're proposing the idea of a TIF within the city of Darien. There are municipalities that have 1, 2, 3, 4 TIFs established. Some of our neighboring communities have established TIF districts for redevelopment of industrial areas, et cetera, et cetera. So establishing a TIF district is not novel. It exists. It's novel for the city of Darien, but not for other communities. This is something that's frequently used for redevelopment. My concern is that without redevelopment of this center will probably die. That tax bill will continue to go down, and it'll hurt the school districts, it'll hurt all the taxing bodies if it continues to go down. So I think we have an opportunity at this point to see a center redevelop where it becomes a productive element of our community. Any other questions for John?
Well, that's for John necessarily, but on the exhibit map, it shows that Homer Inn's part of the TIF district. I mean, that's what it looks like on my map. Is that?
It's not, it's
Okay.
an outlot. It's an outlot,
Okay, so
Homer
it
Inn.
wasn't- It should have been whited out now.
Yeah,
Alright,
that's,
okay.
yeah, I know on the plans, yeah.
And the reason the bank's not on there is the corner is Woodridge.
Right.
Corner is not in the city of Darien. Anything else? We allow questions? Come on. You don't take your vest off, huh?
Thanks, Joe. Art Donner, 7548 Cambridge Road. Just curious, now that the residential component is out of this redevelopment, does the developer have the ability, if he sells this project, to take that approved apartment project and hand it to somebody else? Or there needs to be a resolution to deny that approved plan that's in place? A lot of people that voted against the residential component, hundreds of them, are curious about that. They've asked me. I don't have any idea, so I'm proposing that to you guys tonight, if you can answer that.
I'll let John ask that.
Art? Hi. Hi, how are you?
Good. If the city got wind of something like that, the city would have the ability to amend or repeal that portion of the approval ordinance on its own motion. But obviously we haven't had a hint of that. If you remember from the Gerber thing, we repealed that approval ordinance when it turned out that Gerber was, abandoning the deal. So we have the inherent right to control that.
So it exists right now?
The approval ordinance exists, right.
Okay, very good, thank you.
But the other thing was I think it's pretty clear now that the residential component would be impossible without substantial incentives.
Okay.
Which we would never give.
Clear now?
Okay.
Thank you.
But to Art's point, does it hurt us to vacate the 3 variances we gave on that property? Because they were very specific.
It would not hurt us, and we could do that
It might clarify things for the public.
we could do that, particularly as we move along with the deal. A la Gerber.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, John. Moving on, moving on to the city clerk's report, Joanne.
One item, the Darien city offices will be closed on Friday, July the 4th, in observance of Independence Day.
City administrator's report,
No
Brian.
report, Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
The next meeting, is it the July?
The first meeting in July is gonna be canceled.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Department head information, we have the Chief Thomas with his monthly report. Greg?
Yeah, a few items I put in the monthly report. Council approves money from different places, whether it's equitable sharing funds, task force money, restricted funds, regular budgeted items and those type of things, and I think it's important for the public and yourselves to understand where some of those monies go and, is it useful? And, so one of the ones I chose to, this monthly report was to talk about the drone program, and then the monthly report, you'll see all those different types of things that, I forget, sometime in '24, we went to the drone program, and you'll see the, all those different types of things that, the drone operators have been called out for and been successful in, handling. A couple months ago, you passed the, agreement, with the, remember the name, NEDFIS, to provide a social worker. She's only been in our building for a couple weeks now, but she's, the time I got the information to write the report, she had probably got about 20 hours in, maybe a little bit more hours than that, and had already been given 25 cases to work, and 5 of those accepted resources. So 20% hit rate was pretty good there. And I've already received some positive feedback. My wife had sent in information about a family member that was struggling with mental health. The officers were there regarding a domestic issue. Referred the family to the police social worker, and had a lot of appreciation towards the process and for the social worker, and hopefully a successful outcome with the overall process. Another program that has been extremely successful but ran its course was a police auxiliary officer program. The oldest officer at the police department didn't know when it started because it started before that officer. So it's been around for probably 30 plus years. Done a lot of good stuff. I put a couple of scenarios of what they did to help. The one I put in there was the auxiliary officer on patrol sees a suspicious vehicle, checks out the vehicle, and the person had tried to commit suicide. And called the police, called the ambulance, took them to Good Sam's, and had a positive outcome of that situation. So just a few things to demonstrate that when you provide funding and those different types of things, you have some good outcomes from those. Just a couple things on the e-bike. A lot of the stuff that was presented tonight, bikes and e-bikes that are on the road have to follow the rules of the road. So when they don't have lighting, it's a violation. If they're speeding, it's a violation. Riding through a stop sign, violation. Distracted driving, violation. All those things, riding on one wheel, violation. Just call 911, and we'll come out and investigate. And give you an example. This person called the police on e-bikes on 2 separate occasions. And then I got a letter today, or on Sunday. Your officers are very much on top of this situation, patrolling with a very watchful eye. Tonight, which would have been Sunday night, officers stopped 2 girls on e-bikes speeding and breaking the rules. Parents were called to the scene, and the situation handled. Another situation was on Clarendon Hills and Plainfield Road. E-bike came flying down the street, went right through the light. Patrol car was there and got the boy, took care of the situation. So, again, like we talk a lot of times, just call 911 and we can fix some problems. Now with the ordinance that will come out, what do we say, July 20 or June 21?
July 21st. July 21st.
Then we'll get that fixed up.
And the police meeting is at 6 o'clock that night?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything for the chief or Mr. Gumbel? Anything else?
Chief, is this a big surprise that the auxiliary program, went away as fast as it did?
What's it?
Is this big of a surprise that this auxiliary program went away as fast as it did, or is it Or has it been kind of decreasing?
No, it's done. It's not funded anymore. Yeah, so, April 30th, it was done.
Joe, I think you're asking if it came sudden or was it planned for a while? I think that's the question. Is that answer?
I guess so.
I guess I didn't hear what your question was.
I don't know, maybe I've seen you've got people that were in that program that became Darien police officers, so it's a shame it's gone, that's all I'm saying.
Everything runs its course, and there's only 3 people that were involved in it, well past the age to become a police officer.
Right.
And we're paying for the radio system, we're paying for leads, we're paying for sieges, we're paying for vests and uniforms, a lot of different things to have, maybe a patrol on one night a week. And so, again, it was a great program for a long period of time, but not any longer.
And Chief, it was nothing that hit you one day and it happened the next. You've been talking about this.
I talked about it here. I
Yeah,
talked about it at budgeting, and so it shouldn't be any news to you because we talked about it. So it's probably been about 4 years in the making, but finally just pulled the trigger and made it happen.
Anything else? Okay, that takes us to our warrant.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm requesting council's approval of warrant number 252604, the amount of $1,072,494.32 from the listed funds. Payroll for the period ended June the 12th in the amount of $374,826.86. To total be approved of $1,447,321.18.
Motion to approve, Alderman Belzak, second by Alderman Shower. Any questions or comments? On the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Legansky.
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
The warrant's been approved. That takes us to standing committee reports. Do any of the chairmen have reports? Alderman Belzak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Municipal Services Committee will be meeting a week from today on Monday, June 23rd at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Mary?
With no meeting the first Monday in July, the next Administrative Finance Committee will take place on Monday, August 4th at 6 p.m. in the City Hall Conference Room.
Thank you. Alderman Kenny?
Thanks, man. The police committee meeting for this evening was canceled due to lack of quorum. 2 of our aldermen are out of town. Our next meeting will be on July 21st, Monday, 6 p.m. across the parking lot in the police training room.
And the Darien Action Committee met this last Saturday, and we'll have the minutes of that meeting out as soon as they're prepared. Takes us to questions and comments, agenda related. Anybody in the audience have any questions regarding? She shakes her head no.
I'm just assuming.
And then there was one.
Takes us to old business, there being none, takes us to our consent agenda. Bear with me. Item A,
No,
There's no consent.
There's no consent.
no, there's no consent agenda. New business,
Yes.
Correct.
usually I have a consent agenda. New business, consideration of a motion to approve resolution authorizing the city administrator to enter into a purchase and sale agreement for property and trust to be acquired pursuant to the Plainfield Road, Cass Avenue right-of-way enhancement project. Motion to approve. Alderman Shower, second by Alderman Belzak. Discussion. If none, the roll.
Shower.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Legansky.
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
Item's been approved. Item B, consideration of motion to approve the expenditure of equitable sharing funds to purchase 6 tables from Midwest Office Interiors using Department of Justice award money in the amount of $5,529.62. Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak, second by Alderman Shower. Questions or comments? None, the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Legansky.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
That item has been approved. Item C, consideration of a motion to approve the expenditure of equitable sharing funds to purchase 12 chairs from Midwest Office Interiors using Department of Justice award money in the amount of $9,794.35. Motion to approve. Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderman Kenny. Questions or comments? None, the roll.
Shower,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Leganski.
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
That item has been approved. Takes us to our last item, item D. Consideration of a motion accepting the expenditure of equitable sharing funds to purchase one police administrative vehicle from Midwest 911 Incorporated using Department of Justice equitable sharing funds in the amount of $51,429.70. Motion to approve. Alderman Shower, seconded by Alderwoman Sullivan. Any questions or comments?
Just we're able to use equitable sharing funds because it's for a new position. Correct.
If no more questions, the roll.
Shower,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Leganski.
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
5 ayes and 2 absent.
And that item has been approved. Takes us to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. Anyone have anything they'd like to add? Leganski.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Just want to let the public know this Friday and Saturday having a multi-family garage sale in my ward. I've got 15 families participating. Again, it's just a great way to kind of bring neighbors together, and I know from talking with you and Brian today, you might be stopping by, and I know the residents will appreciate you stopping by and taking the time. So weather looks hot, but should be fun.
I just have to make sure Mr. Vanna doesn't go crazy buying stuff.
I can't promise that.
Anyone else? Mary?
Just a reminder that the Sokol Sled, the American Sokol Sled Chicago, is starting next week in Darien, with the opening ceremonies and the kickoff being on Wednesday, June 25th at Hinsdale South High School in the stadium. The full list of activities and information will be on the Darien calendar, and it'll be also in this week's Direct Connect. But I encourage residents to come out and experience this. It doesn't happen but every 4 years, and for us to be hosting it in Darien, a lot of great effort and work has gone into it, and I think we should be as supportive as we can.
I agree. I think it's a good program. I'd like to see a lot of people turn out and welcome 300 people from the Czech Republic. I want to thank the Darien Park District for their redesign and redevelopment of the paver brick patio that exists over there by the pavilion. I don't know if many people knew, but we put this paver brick idea in there a number of years ago for some of us to honor deceased members of our family, or just as a tribute to a family member. The paver is sunk, they collected dirt, weeds grew up between them. The Park District took all those bricks out. They cleaned them, they redesigned the layout, they put a new basin, they put all the pavers back in there, and it really looks nice. They actually increased the size of the patio. The Lions Club is going to have a dedication ceremony on July 4th following their parade, so you're invited to attend that. But many thanks to the Park District for doing that, because now it really adds to that pavilion, and it's a nice tribute to the people who had paver bricks there. Anything else? Motion to adjourn. Alderman Shower, second by Alderman Leganski. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.